Wait,
So,
where is this?
funnily enough, there's actually a game that Ian used to play, which was trying to go through my tweets and to find hints about what the D&D session was going to be about, which is occasionally why there are crypticisms. Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to Jarviskjir. Here be heroes on this fine Sunday. On this fine Sunday. The whole crew's here, which is actually the norm for this show. But, you know, Josiah's actually in his house, which is at least
true.
something.
I'm back in my actual home where my internet is not garbaged here.
Yeah,
so
you're
I'm
really
happy.
small. I need to update you. You're a very tiny man right now.
I apologize.
You're a halfling.
Oh, and I'm zoomed in. I'm gonna zoom
Oh,
my camera out.
you're usually like a big face of Bo, but
I'm gonna zoom myself out just a little bit.
all right.
Here, I'll tell my camera. There you
Hey, how is everyone? How was Halloween for people? That was in the last week, wasn't it?
That was, yes. It was on Wednesday.
Yeah, it was on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It was fun. It's Eric's birthday, so you know we always
You
Make
get
a thing
kind
of
of
it,
a
right?
double whammy holiday.
right. It's just more of an excuse to go out and celebrate it. 'Cause I do
Yes.
appreciate
Yeah,
Halloween.
yeah. It means you actually do things. I did no things.
I wish Halloween was a bigger thing here because I love the costume stuff.
We went into New York City, so everyone was dressed in costumes, and it was super cool.
Yes, exactly. You live in a great place to do Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in a big city, Halloween is great. If you're not, it's meh.
I'm an adult who doesn't dress up anymore or do anything for Halloween. And by I'm an adult, I really mean I'm a child in an adult's body who doesn't have time to do things for Halloween.
You also don't
But I-
drink, which is the other thing to do on Halloween.
Yes.
It's dress up
Also,
and drink.
but what I do is I buy cheap Halloween candy and I eat a ton of it.
The story I have of a Halloween, one of my Halloween costumes was Legolas, and I was at, a
makes sense.
university party, and I was drinking a cider with my mates, and just because the human body has flaws, it just fell out of my hand. I was just sitting there drinking, and it just fell onto the stone and just smashed, and everyone looked at me, and I just said, well, I'm not a real elf, and that was that. Anyway, we're here to play D&D, where two of the party members are real elves, if you count Drow as elves, which most elves don't.
Ruit does.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. You're a very modern, forward-thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah, you guys are the same race as far as Tobias.
Exactly.
Quite a tongue-cutting out, hand-chopping off liberal.
So, what happened
Everything
last
about
week?
more brutal than me.
This
Well,
is
he's
what
a
I'm
mountain
coming to learn is like my ideas of different kinds of elves are totally being like shifted. Because I always imagined Drow as like the terrible hand cutting off monsters. And I was like, oh, the mountain elves are fine, they're harmless, whatever. And now I'm like, oh, they're all psychopaths, and this guy is just like a nice boy who wants
Welcome to Jarviskjir.
Where everybody's a psychopath and no one wants to help you.
There is a recurring theme of a lead character having elven blood and cutting off body parts. It's happened in several campaigns. So
To
what happened?
be fair, there's also humans who cut off body parts, but
It's
specifically
also
usually
elven
goblin body
lore,
parts.
so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Last week, you murdered the crime lord known as Smoke, so that he could no longer
Execute.
Yeah, that's fair.
Executed.
Executed. That's very very accurate. You executed him, and you freed his servant Kavera,
without prejudice.
and you started on your way across the ice. Well, after, making sure everything was set for you to leave, of course. On the way, you got attacked by orcs, because there are orcs out in the ice. And a Remoraz, which
Full size, clearly. Yeah.
full size, definitely an adult Remoraz that you
Yeah.
fought. And pretty much the last session ended off with you defeating it, just barely saving Viric's life,
Right.
because it
That was
was
close.
very
forgot
close
about
to
that.
eating him or doing, who knows? That elf was nearly, elf sushi. There we go. The
One
joke needed
attack.
to percolate.
Just
in my
my
brain.
entire health for one attack. the fight went from yeah to oh.
That's what you want with a monster. So that's literally where we start off. You, I know you guys wanted to do some more stuff in this scene, more or less, with the battle ending with the orcs and the Remoraz, and you just went and quickly healed Virik so that he's no longer bleeding to death. Mm-hmm. And the scene around you is white ice as far as the eye can see, white sky, and blood on the ice as there's bodies of orcs littered, some of them half eaten by a Remoraz, most of them beheaded by someone. Their equipment laying on the ground in puddles of blood, and the Remoraz, which is this huge blue sort of centipede-ish like creature, all the heat of the heat aura that was on its body from the crystals on its back is just starting to subside. You can kind of see the sort of haziness around it in the air sort of go away. The glow of the orange on its back is starting to die down. Now that you're not in the throw of combat, you can even hear it. It's kind of almost like an engine hum dying out. Of course, none of you would have heard an engine before, but still.
Well, I do seem to recall one of these orcs having a shiny looking better heavy crossbow.
Yes.
I would like to try and find this.
When you go over, actually, they have quite a few heavy crossbows. Some of them are very very rough quality. One of them, it's very clear when looking at them that they're not of orcish construction. Some of them have clearly been repaired. Like literally, there's like a wooden like plank nailed to the side of it, and you don't know anything about orcs. You know orcs exist, and you know they're monsters. You wouldn't be able to know what an orcish construction was. But it's just, there is a level of grace in these designs that is beyond them. Like, even just physically, their hands are too big to make these things. One of them has an almost gold-like metal around it, and it kind of looks like, the bolt shoots out of a dragon's mouth, is kind of a design. It's a very ornate, pretty heavy crossbow that has no statistical difference, but is pretty. And,
yeah,
it matters.
I'm definitely going to take that. This is BFC 2.
Are you gonna swap? Because I don't think you can carry both.
No, I'll ask Eleanor if you want your crossbow back.
Oh yeah, I'll carry the other one.
Like, thank you for lending this to me.
Yeah, now you got your own one. Exactly. Adventure. When it goes over the other equipment they have, some of them have great axes, some of them had hand axes. Some have spears. There's a couple of shields as well. Most of them are clearly scavenged, assumedly from Dragonborn. There's a lot of dragon aesthetic. They're quite high quality, but not to the extent of being magical or better than anything you'd find anywhere else. There's a detail put into the design of these things. The equipment they're wearing is a mixture of like just hides and it's almost tribal garb, and like clearly some stolen scale mail that's been draped over some body parts, and a stolen dragonborn helmet and stuff like that. But I don't think, if you want to loot these things, you can. Oh, and there's definitely a good deal of crossbow bolts left. You'd actually find about 18 of them when you're going around the place.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Virik's just lying on the ground in front of the thing.
Well, he's going around looting.
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe wiping a bit of the saliva or whatever. Does that thing have saliva?
Of a form, yeah. There's definitely a slimy substance on your body.
Perfect.
Good.
Yeah,
Yep. So,
it's very warm.
The other thing I want to do is, can I grab some claws or teeth and things from this thing?
Monster Hunter this, you need a survival roll. Which you can be, if Baruch wants to help you or something, you can have.
I'd be help.
That's kind of what I was assuming.
Yeah.
I would also be happy to help if you need it.
You can only get one advantage.
Watch.
Yeah, no. I might wait and ask Tobias to help me, and then mainly get him to do it with me.
Get him to do it, yeah.
Because that'll look better. The other thing I'd be looking for is I assume it's got chitin.
Yes, it is a chitinous creature.
2 chitin plates that are big enough for my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I can't
Well, it depends
grab
on how good the survival roll isn't.
Yep.
So do you want me to do it?
Yeah,
Yes,
he's
that
giving
helps
you
you.
advantage. It's one of those things where, like, come help me do. It's literally like a barbecue situation. Come help me with the burgers. You are the
pretty
one
much.
doing the burgers. And luckily, this is your kind of thing. You have been training monsters. You even listened when Barut found out all the legends about the Remoraz on the ice sheets between here and Bastillion. You actually very quickly can get to the thing and start taking its mandibles, its fangs. It's basically got it's an insect creature. It's got multiple sets of mandibles, but you straight up remove the big main 2, which could easily be fashioned into a kind of short sword or dagger, but if you give it to a craftsman, depending on what you want. It doesn't seem that this creature has intrinsic venom or anything, but I'm gonna have to check that. But they are still this kind of bright, really bright, kind of glossy, shiny blue. The same goes for when you take the, just parts of its body off to put onto Viric's shoulders of his armor, because he doesn't wear armor, so he can pretty much have whatever he wants.
Yeah.
It's like you take some of the basically like leg parts and things and get enough shell to work as small shoulder plates without restricting your movement. It's a fairly glossy, shiny blue. Which is very, very bright. You wouldn't have expected it to be as bright as it is.
There's a reason why I'd be putting it on the shoulder pads, because I've already said that those are removable. So if I need stealth,
Yeah,
exactly.
in the process, I'm definitely gonna harvest enough of its meat, if it has any, for us to eat. Does it have edible flesh?
Well, with a survival roll, it does. I mean, I think we were talking last week about eating insects. It is edible. It's definitely not the kind of food the lot of you would be used to, but I think Barut probably... Actually, Barut and Virik have experience of eating giant insects. It's a very viable form of protein in a fantasy land.
Like a crab or a lobster?
Yeah! No, I was actually going to say, it's going to be kind of lobstery.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can literally, because you're all a little injured. I mean, you've got some magical healing out. You can literally, just strip enough meat off that thing to feed the rest of you and feed you on the way as well. And cook up and rest. The 2 tieflings are very thankful for the rest. Cherubin is very much fawning over Barut and Virik. Being like, that thing had you in its mouth. I don't really know if you can call that a mouth. It doesn't look like a mouth on you or me, but as you can imagine how that conversation just keeps going.
Yeah. Also, not a big deal, but one thing I would like to do is take a teeth, or probably just 1 tooth actually, just as a souvenir.
Yeah, exactly.
give
You're
my
taking
brother.
little trinkets from your kills, and that's perfect. The mandibles, you could do something else with later.
Yeah, mostly just because when it comes to actual battle, I'm not too worried about it. But if we've actually hunted a big monster, it's okay, this is actually it has a story.
Yeah.
We might still have the hand from that big monster we fought in the other city.
That's super okay. You just hang wrong.
All right.
I'm not too worried about giving a hand to my
little gnome
brother.
hand to your
Little
brother.
gnome hand.
Sure? I don't think we have those still. I think we probably got rid of
You probably do. Knowing you guys,
You still have those.
they probably
because
just
I didn't really get rid of them.
you probably just put them in a bag. Yeah, right. I just
Yeah.
imagine you just
Pockets and forgot they were
Yeah.
there.
they're in
I
the
have
head
his
bag.
tongue still too.
And then it's
Oh,
it's finding money in an old coat
Yeah.
I haven't worn since last
Oh, a
winter.
hand.
What's
Yeah.
that smell?
Oh, there's a guy's
Huh.
tongue.
Hold on. I just need to find some food here. Hold on. Oh, that's not food.
I mean, it could be.
It could. Trying times. Trying times.
You haven't been watching my RimWorld game, have you?
I have been watching your RimWorld game. Why do you ask?
No reason.
No reason. Nothing to see here.
So I imagine you set up rest a little
I
bit
set
earlier
some
tonight
alarms.
because you guys need to bandage your wounds, and you, even while setting up a camp, you carve more meat off this thing. All of these things take a little bit of time, and you cook Is there anything else you want to go over, like sort of before the end and before you continue traveling again?
Might want to, take a look around the orc stuff just in case there's anything else of interest, but I'd just be doing it kind of casually.
If you wanted any of their equipment, you could totally just take it. I don't think any of these are really interesting to you.
No, I'm not really, no.
I doubt they had a short sword.
No, hand axes though.
Ooh, you know what? I might take a hand axe, just a single hand axe, just in case.
They're a throwing weapon. You like to throw things. That's how it is.
It's like, like if I roll many ones and my chakrams go away, I'm just like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like literally, like why not just have a hand axe, like just on your belt? Cool.
I will do that.
So you spend the night. You cook up the remoras. Hey Tobias, why don't you give me a cooking roll? That is an intelligence check.
Oh no.
Is it just straight intelligence?
You don't have cooking proficiency, do you?
Definitely not.
That's something we should learn at some point. We do a lot of travel.
Like an artisan tool.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, what did he roll? Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh, it's a simple, so I have proficiency.
So, the next morning, you eat the remoras. You fry it up over a fire. You have a tinderbox. You're smart enough to bring some, quick burning materials, which is the kind of thing Northmen, usually carry with them just in case. And you cook them up. You know what? It actually tastes fine. Like you said, it's kind of a little crab-like. It's interesting. Sometimes you accidentally eat a little bit of the kite and then your mouth goes numb, but you don't really worry about that. The next morning, you all feel awful. Going through, and you're already a week and a bit, if I remember, through. The travels, the ice and the cold, you have winter gear. That's actually been something you've been able to handle, and Tobias has been able to forage. But that was not edible. That was not something that your bodies can handle. And the next morning you wake up just feeling like the sickness of food poisoning, but even worse than that, you actually all have, including the tieflings, a level of exhaustion.
Oh no. Oh no.
Perfect.
Where is that on this sheet?
There isn't. You just have to reply it manually, which is why I have the DM's shield here, because it's the only place where it's really easy to find the exhaustion rules.
It's advantage. It's disadvantage.
Disadvantage on ability checks, exhaustion level 1.
Yep.
And unfortunately, you're on a long trek, which means it's not that easy to get rid of exhaustion levels. So, I'm going to need you to give me a survival roll, Mr. Tobias, with disadvantage.
I am also going to be doing this as much as possible.
Oh no.
Now that it would be one thing if just a few of you got sick. And that's probably what you imagine. It's probably one of those things where you wake up and each of you thinks that you're the only one who got sick, because you probably don't want to admit that you got food poisoning on the middle of a journey like this. But you're all sick. And when Tobias is kind of, you're sweating and you feel hot despite the cold here. It is incredibly unpleasant. You find it hard to concentrate. It's not that you're not necessarily that good at navigating, because you are, and that skill doesn't go away. Although your brain is foggy, it's as misty as this area is every morning. You might make some stupid decisions, but you can always go back on them. You never cause a problem. That's a good idea.
Is this considered a poison or disease?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so 3 of us are fine.
Well, that's actually good, because I wasn't gonna let you to just cure exhaustion because you're on a long-term trek. But basically, over 2 days, you just do that, which cuts the downtime of you guys. Because I was gonna say, beyond all of that, you're just sluggish. You guys just can't trek for at least 16 hours a day, like you have been the rest of the time. You just can't do it. And you have 2 non-combatants who are even slower than normal.
I let them be sick for a little bit longer, just until the second day. They don't get healed on the first day.
I guess that's more important, to have people who are, fighting.
Combat ready. Yeah.
Over the next 2 days, Enel's magic manages to purify and remove the affliction from you, and you learn an important lesson that no one told you: to not eat remoras. Then the journey continues on the ice flats for a little bit more time. It's a very strange experience. It's desolate. There's not much to be found, but between Barut and Tobias, you actually, every now and again you find maybe like a herd of muskox or traveling animals here. You hunt a few of them, you like settle down for the day, you hunt a few of them, cook them up, have enough rations to continue traveling. You find little groves where just a little bit of plant life is growing enough to feed. You guys don't have to worry about rations. Tobias is very efficient at finding food in this kind of environment, and you do it in a very smart way so that people can rest while you guys hunt. But traveling itself is just going in a direction. It's actually not as bad as maybe you'd thought, because you're traveling in the middle of summer. There's a little bit of snow occasionally, more often just cold rain and mists in the morning that are painful. When that disease is cleared from you, when you get rid of your food poisoning, you actually, you have very little trouble traveling on what's mostly very flat terrain, mostly quite effortless. It's when more and more time passes that on one of the mornings, another week into the travel, a week and a bit, you actually see on the distance Tobias and Barut, who I think have the better perception scores. You see very briefly on the distance, on the far horizon, and usually you don't see anything on the horizon. Usually it's just white everywhere. It's very easy to get disorientated, which is why it's great that Brute has a good understanding of the stars. Even those are quite hard to see.
I also have this going on.
Exactly.
And I'd be trying to keep an eye on where the weather is going to be nicest for us to travel as well.
Yes, and that's very useful as well.
Yeah.
On one of these mornings, you actually see on the horizon little lines going straight up. Just the spires in the distance. But you only see them for a few minutes before the morning mists take in. But you know that you're going in the right direction. You can orientate yourself that way and head on going. And despite what your nature would have you believe, Barut, you're starting to get into heavy snow. When you've really had no problems with snow this entire journey, when you're starting to head this way, the snow is starting to, almost from nowhere, just to go from nothing to a storm, maybe even a blizzard. It is strong, it is cold, it bites away at your body. It doesn't slow you down, because you guys know how to handle a blizzard like that. You're from the north. But I do need you all to give me a constitution check.
Yep.
Check, not save, correct?
So, let me check, actually. Don't press anything! Don't press anything!
Press all the things.
It's always the bottom book. It's always the bottom book in the pile is the one I need.
Every time.
Every time.
Honestly, I was probably going to say, realistically, Virik would probably still have disadvantage because it's not quite as used as everyone else is to the northern weather.
You have winter equipment.
Oh, we do, yeah.
And that's why you haven't had to do the checks so far. If you didn't, you definitely would have. This is getting colder beyond winter equipment. I don't know which part of the book I'm looking for the rules for this. Not traveling through time. That's a different thing.
While we're doing this, and while you're looking for that, is this, does this seem magical, this
You
weather?
didn't predict it coming.
So, my assumption at this point is that it would be magical weather. As in that it was imposed by some magical force, not necessarily that it was,
It is a
magical in
save.
and of
It's
itself.
Constitution saves. Constitution saves.
Oh, so that's disadvantage then, isn't it? Oh no, wait, no, we're not exhausted anymore.
You aren't exhausted anymore. No.
First level of exhaustion is only on.
And it wasn't on saves anyway, yeah.
You don't get it on save.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Holy crap!
Now, you do have 2 NPCs.
Oh no.
Yeah, but they're tieflings, right? They're fine.
Tieflings
They
love
didn't have to
the-
roll before. Now they do. This is very cold. And they both fail. So actually, as you're going through this blizzard on the first day, like I said, a lot of you, it is a change and it is frustrating. It's mostly just a shock because it's very quick. But you have winter equipment and you guys know what you're doing. You know how to travel. You know, Tobias makes you travel in a way that makes you all safest. You trudge on forward, not even slowing down despite the snow, because you two are certain that this is the direction. You don't even need to worry about where you're going. You have enough backup food. You can rely on rations. You just go this way. The two tieflings, Cherubin and Kavara, they don't do so good. And you even think, well, they have inner heat. They have a fire inside their body. It's literally like part of their legend. The reason why they exist in this land is because of their inner heat. And yet they are lagging behind. Their skin even seems to just dull, like their lips turn blue.
If Virik sees this, he will actually offer them his cloak and take whatever that means for him.
Okay.
Burwood's also going to be trying to help them along as much as possible because he's handling this fine, basically.
Yeah, so. Literally. Would anyone else, because you have one cloak, would anyone else give their other cloak to the other tiefling?
I would.
Cool. Great. And then you guys are helping him along. On the end of this day, just besieged by blizzards. And during this time, you study even more. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to this blizzard. You know, storms work in particular ways. This is like coming from every direction at once. It's clearly unnatural. Your assumptions are just getting more and more cemented the longer you spend in it. There's no letting up of it or anything. You find a place to camp for the night. You try and make it as hot and as safe as possible for them. And then you need to keep trekking in the morning. All of you give me Constitution saves. Barut and Virik, you have disadvantage.
Oh no!
Everyone rolled a 9.
Everyone
rolled a 9.
What the hell? That is very.
But hey, both the tieflings passed.
Well,
we did our job, Virik.
You did your job. Traveling the next day, in part, it's because the two of you got rid of your winter clothing. You know, the thick white hides and warm clothes that allowed you to trek through and when doing that, you actually incredibly notice how cold it is. It's painful. And Barut, you have armor on. It's painful. Every step, you know, the armor's in the joints just starts to ploy up, and every movement takes a concerted effort. The blizzard feels like it's getting stronger to all of you, but of course it isn't. You're just getting weaker. You're just getting battered down. The very Northman, like, we can just handle this head on. We just through the storm attitude kind of dies down on the second consecutive day of the nothing but storm. And all of you get a point of exhaustion. I mean, don't think you get away with it. That's easy.
Yeah.
But after a long time trekking through it, it's not even, the blizzard hasn't even truly ended, but you can almost see through it. And when you see through it, you see closer, incredibly close, right in front of you, spires of stone that stretch up into the sky on a frozen, on a lake. I mean, the frozen lake, but there's water, there's icebergs, and a bridge very close to you. Like, you just need to change your direction slightly to go towards a bridge that goes from the main of the ice into the city of Bastillion. Because you made it. It's very dark. It's you all want to sleep no matter what time of day it is, honestly. But it's very dark. But the bridge has many lanterns lining the sides of it, and you can start pushing your way towards it. And when you do, when you just before you set your first foot on the stone bridge, you actually feel the blizzard kind of die off into nothing but a sprinkling snow and a harsh wind at your back. So, yeah, relief and tiredness. The bridge itself, very ornate. Brilliant archway. All the decorations are incredibly gothic, with gargoyles sitting on points. The lanterns are very, Victorian English sort of designs. The city you're traveling towards has these brilliant gothic architectures of every building is a spire that goes up as far as the eye can see, and seems to also go down under the water until the eye can see, linked with bridges and walkways and flat areas between them. Some of them have parks, some of them have marketplaces. Even the bridge you're traveling towards has people on it. The majority actually being Borovar, being Goliath, that you see, who seem to be, you know, trying to sell their services, guiding people out of the city as you travel. When you start getting more and more along, you know, there's even some tieflings who are trying to sell like clearly homemade remedies to the cold, to like, I see, you're travelers from far away. Drink this, only 20 gold. It'll warm you right up. You'll feel just like one of us. Stuff like that.
As if we walk by someone who's selling that, I'm going to take out the Crimson Mountain whiskey that I have and just take a swig of that out of the bottle.
Warms you right up.
Warms you right up.
Yeah.
Just back it away and just keep walking.
Exactly. And soon you get over onto the bridge. When you get over onto the bridge, as you would expect from and usually when you enter an entryway into a city, there's almost like a plaza. It stretches out in many traditional like areas people usually go to, right? So you can move efficiently through the city. And it does here. It travels up into a market where you see tieflings. A lot of tieflings. Tieflings are weird looking. Even though you've got used to them and you're traveling with them, there's just a variety in them. And their fashion is not like anything you've seen because you've been in cold environments. And these tieflings are wearing just like dress shirts and waistcoats and a very gothic sort of Victorian fashion, but is sometimes a little bit twisted with horns and spikes and things. The tieflings themselves, some of them have incredibly varied skin tones, some of them barely look human. They are a very varied race. And there are other races that you see around in this marketplace. You actually nearly get, you manage to snap to your senses quick enough because you're all tired to avoid a halfling pickpocket who is going between people and such things. Because, well, there's a mixture of people here. If they make it here, they tend to stay, weirdly enough, because it's just hard to get out. The two tieflings with you. Kavera is just wide-eyed. She's looking around at everything, and honestly, you guys might be as well, because it's just a lot. It's an information overload, especially these people like Barut who actually care about the architecture. And there's
Very cool.
There's a mixture of smells from the food stalls here, because of course there's travelers coming in. They need warm food in their bellies. There's a mixture of sounds because there's some people playing music. There's like preachers standing on soapboxes going, "Hear ye all of the city!" Like it's an information overload when you enter. And Cherubin is, despite her tiredness, practically bouncing up and down at excitement. And actually starts sort of leading the way through this crowd. Unless any of you want to stop and do anything or have anything to discuss.
Definitely gonna buy some street meat on the way through, but aside from that,
I mean, like, yeah, it's a cultural experience. As we're going through, we're touristing a little bit. Like,
Absolutely.
not a huge amount, but like, I'm taking in the architecture, but I'm making sure to keep an eye. After we saw that first pickpocket, I'm keeping my eye on my.
Of course, it's
on
a
my
very
bags
dense
and
city
everything as well. Yeah,
Lyric has his bag of copper on his belt, not
Yes!
his bag of gold.
yeah,
Yeah,
Good
exactly.
man. Good man.
And he's also very interested in this architecture because, like, going from underground to northern to this.
The interesting thing about this is that you didn't live in the biggest city of the Drow. You lived in a smaller community, but there's definitely parallels to be drawn because Drow often build in this kind of very towery way with structures between them as well. It is as familiar in some ways, although there's a sky and a sea.
Yeah.
When you actually get the little bit of
That's good.
street meat, the first thing you notice, and you'd get a little bit of everything. You'd spend like a little bit of money. Don't worry about it. There's kind of similar to maybe like a cyberpunk sort of thing. A lot of like noodle bars and like the noodle like package you end up getting like in a sort of paper bowl type thing that's clearly just like folded and is kind of like a diamond shape. Is these noodles that are flavored with the blood of some kind of beast. The tieflings use a lot of blood in their cooking, and a lot of like body parts that other cultures don't use so much, which is to Barut actually pretty familiar because you kill a goat up in the mountain, you eat every part of that goat. And you're like, this is definitely goat blood. Goat. Yeah, you actually entirely familiar.
This is a great time.
Very
I'm having a really, really good time eating this. It feels like home. I'm missing home a little bit. I've been gone now for like actually like over a year, over 2 years now. Like this is great. This is a good time. I'm enjoying this.
There's also a little bit of spice to it, which is not that common in most communities.
Love it.
I just shake my head and mutter something about the elves being ostentatious. So I thought, bar has been raised.
It's very much a different kind of ostentatious. Whereas Thunderor is very much designed to impress. It's designed to impress you. This is almost a claustrophobic kind of impressiveness. More so. The very impression you get is almost like this space is too big for the people inside it. So it's got these huge grand vistas and stuff, and this area is bustling with people. But it is just a very disconnect. It doesn't feel as it feels flawed in many ways, in a way that Thunderol was designed not to, although of course it was, you know. There's no effort to cover that up. There's no effort to hide pickpockets and that sort of thing. And there are dark alleys and things like that. Cherubin actually is leading you not incredibly far. The way she leads you go over walkways that, you know, there's nothing below them. If you go over that ledge, you're just gonna fall. Which is, of course, a slightly weird feeling to all of you but Varric. And will lead you towards one of the things. And in a city like this, it is structures on the spires themselves. There's no other buildings. It's literally, you know, buildings built into the side of the spires, or carved into them, or built adjacent, like strapped to them and stuff like that. And leads you to a building that Barut, you speak and read Vas. In Vas, on the front, there is a kind of a painted symbol of like a barrel, and it's called the Boil Barrel. And when you go in, it's a very dense, tightly packed building, but is clearly a kind of inn tavern. All the building, the stone here is very dark, very dense stone, but there's been efforts to make this a little more comfortable. You smell more spices, you smell ale and drink and wine. And because of the time of day, there's actually quite a few people in here. And very clearly the place is staffed by halflings who, the building is very much not designed for halflings, but the bar is. So you kind of have to sit on cushions and things, which actually isn't incredibly uncommon either to some of you. And she'll very excitedly say, "This is perfect. We can rest up here, and I'll pay for your rooms, and then I can take Kavara, and we can go off to my chapel, and I can rest. I know it's good to be home, but it'll be even better to rest."
Great. That sounds fantastic. Rest is the right choice right now, I think.
She will kind of sit at just one of the tables. She will actually sit in a place where she can sit up against the wall and just kind of flop. And I imagine the rest of you do too. She will order some food. I'm going to see what that food's going to be using a random generator because I like doing it. It's roasted rabbit. With some kind of... It's some kind of gourd. Some kind of gourd-like vegetable. You don't really know. It's not familiar, but it's warm. It's a very kind of... To those of you who have had halfling cooking, it's a very warm family kind of cooking, and exactly the kind of thing your tired bodies need. There's a lot of food considered, and it looked like it cost quite a bit as well. You see several gold handed over, and you can eat, and there's a bit of drink going on, but it's one of those things where there's like a pitcher of ale that you can kind of pour into your mug instead of each of you having a mug of ale, because, you know, Cherubin assumed that you didn't all want to drink because you were tired, which may or may not be correct.
Burrow's actually not going to be drinking tonight. He's going to be kind of keeping aware. It's a city where there's so much going on that he wants to be have his wits about him. He's not feeling safe here, but he is feeling intrigued. So,
Spirit would want a little bit to drink, not like
exactly
sloshed drunk, but you know, drink.
It's also one of these cities where you're not getting water. Not cheaply. This is definitely the cheaper option, is a thinned ale. Cool.
I was going to ask Cherubin.
No, this is a time to talk. If you have things to talk
Yeah,
about.
no, I just remembered that she didn't even know what a drow was. That's not going to work. Well, she didn't know there was a difference, rather. So I can't ask her if it's safe to take off my mask. I'm not going to bother.
Cool. So you're going to keep the mask on?
I was going to ask.
I'm going to be like doing the whole like thing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask Cherubin. So where is this? Where is your chapel?
It's close. It's actually not very far away. Just a short walk. But I thought I don't know who's going to be there, if anyone's going to be there. So because I'm going back there to take it over. Not aggressively. That's a very aggressive way of putting it. There is no one else left in charge. So I thought resting up beforehand might be more wise, just in case.
Just in
Take
case.
a longer drink.
Just in case of what, precisely?
You have not been to Bastillion before.
No, I'm very interested about it.
It is a very how would you say in common tongue, a cutthroat city and area.
So you're expecting potential resistance?
Not expecting, just it's intelligent to prepare.
Of course. And
I'm sure that the guide has made my path as peaceful as possible so far, with very few problems, and I believe that there will be no further problems, and if there are problems, the guide has prepared me with all of you.
Well, this will certainly be interesting. I'd love to see how this goes, and I'm very happy that we get to be there while you do this.
You are?
He's just gonna like nudge you. Of course we are. We're all happy to be here. And I'm going to eat and stop talking for a bit.
Exactly. It's the kind of night where there's no plans to do anything else but eat. The halfling host will be like, "Oh no, you bought so much, please take more. You got this pie," and you're like, "Well, he's here. He's gonna eat."
He's the reverse seagull grandparent, where you just, as you take food, they bring out more.
Yeah.
You take food, they bring out more.
It's also of note that the tieflings here are the ones that most of you, not so, are used to, but that most D&D settings are not used to, where these are northern halflings. I might say tieflings. These are northern halflings who are, a little more stockier. You could easily confuse them with a little bit of dwarven blood. They have beards, but not to the glorious degree of dwarves. More like Tobias. They just wear beards. It's cold. It's smart. Their culture's just a little different, but still good eating. It's still good eating, still good cooking. And a little bit of pipe weed in the air as well. When all of you retire to bed, because there's just eating and sleeping is on the mind. Cherubin did buy separate rooms for you all, and these are very much pod rooms. Space is at a premium. This tavern is not very big. You go upstairs, and each one of you has a tiny room that is essentially just a bed. A bed that is fairly comfortable, but there's not even like any like door, little bit of space, bed. No space beside bed, little shelf, you know, vents so that the air is mostly doesn't stagnate, but not much room. But also at this point, it's fairly warm as well because it's so compact and all the rooms are so tight together, and there are rock walls between them, well-crafted stone. So you definitely hear other people. You definitely hear laughing and joking from people who are staying up much later than you guys, because you're just like, we have eaten now. I am going to pass out. I am going to go into one of these rooms and just fall into one of these beds. But it'd be one of those things, if you weren't so exhausted, it might not be a very restful sleep. But each one of you is so... You just need sleep that you're all out. You all sleep incredibly deeply.
I'm actually... I mean, given that
you two don't sleep, of course. But
I actually was going to prepare, because I'm so exhausted, I was going to prepare that ritual again with Virik potentially for dreaming.
If you want. There's not really much room to do that here, because you kind of have to make a symbol.
It would be modified.
You could modify it, yeah.
Yeah, it would be like obviously heavily modified and to fit the space, but very much because I want to be trying it as well. I kind of want to guide Virik through it, but then also be attempting it at the same time myself. Which
that's definitely going to increase the difficulties.
I understand that, and the by trying it at the same time myself, I mean set up for myself at the same time, but then kind of guide myself through it after I've guided Virik through.
Yes, no, I get you.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I obviously can't do both simultaneously.
Because it's kind of like a form of hypnosis. Yes, exactly. And you can hypnotize yourself. Yep. You need to give me a religion roll then, Barut.
Yeah. And I assume that's with disadvantage, given that we are still exhausted.
Yes.
Virik would also ask if you want him to try and focus on anything particular, because he doesn't know what he wants to look at. So
yeah.
He might just do it for the sake of doing it and see what happens.
He doesn't. Barut doesn't want you to focus on anything particular. He wants you to pick a memory, pick something that made you happy, and focus on that.
Okay.
And Barut's going to be focusing on something happy as well.
You make out the ritual as you've done before. It's one of those things where when you did this ritual of dreaming before, you modified it slightly. And now you have to modify it even slightly more because there's just not much space. And you need to make a circle for both of you. I imagine you're in one of these rooms and the beds are fairly long because some tieflings are kind of tall. You're both sitting on it, cross-legged, and you draw these circles around them with incense and flowers around you, and you start the rituals and things. But you're having a hard time remembering the words to the very particular holy words you need to say. And in the end, you're so tired. It's one of those things where the ways that elves trance is parallel to sleep, that when you're so tired and you're in this position, Barut actually falls asleep near the end of trying to do the ritual. He wouldn't have, it wouldn't have worked properly anyway. But Virik, maybe you notice, maybe you don't, because you fall into trance at a very similar time. And, and hey, at least you're sleeping together. It's one of those things when you're going to wake up and you're like, oh, damn.
Yeah. We'll try again. We'll try again in the future. It's, it was worth giving it a shot.
It's very strange waking up in a room that seems so removed from the environment it's in. Most of the time when you're in a tavern, you'll have a window or a window nearby or thin enough walls that you can hear the air moving around outside. Here you can't. Here the first thing you hear is probably Aelnor putting on her armor, in like a nearby room. There's like nothing of the world outside because it's just enclosed in the stone spire. When you wake up, you go downstairs and there's breakfast being served of a flatbread sort of thing, and it's actually basically pita bread and hummus. to throw all things to the side. And of course, there's been nice blood-dripping sauce. I like the range of faces. Of course, you guys would be the first ones awake. So if you want to have a conversation without the escort quest, feel free.
I feel like we're getting ourselves involved in something much bigger than we know.
When I said I was happy that we were going to be there to see it, I want to point out I'm not happy that we're going to be there to see it. Our job was to transport her to Bastillion. We have done that. We are not there to make sure that she is able to take control of this church. If that was part of the contract, then I did not see it.
What was the exact wording of the contract? It would deliver her to the church?
It's pretty much to Bastillion, actually.
Yeah. So let's be done with it then.
I am not suggesting that we necessarily be done with it. I'm suggesting that we collect our contract, and then if she wishes to hire us for another contract of making sure that she gets to the church, that we in fact do that as well. Yeah, we open it up, and it would be a much lower cost for her. But we're meant to do work here as well while we're here and set up the Greyfists here. It would be good to at least get a job under our belts here rather than just a delivery here.
At that token, though, we're not sellswords.
No, we're not.
Mercenaries.
But we do ensure people's safety.
We do, but we don't know the situation.
It's true, which is why she would need to explain it to us in great detail before we are hired for a contract. We are not going to go into this without information. That's what I want. I want to make sure that we complete our contract here as we have done, collect on it, and then get information from her as to whether or not we could even take a contract to bring her to the church.
Yeah, I mean, big cities like this tend to be rife with nasty things like politics and religion. So
Burrowitt's nodding probably more than you would expect a cleric to nod to that.
Well, the paladin also nods quite a bit.
Yeah.
You two aren't really part of organized religion, to be fair.
There's a difference between the vibe I'm getting here and the vibe that we get like up north. Like, reverence for the spirits is one thing, but this is literally just like, it's senseless. Anyways, I'm not about to get wrapped up in a situation that involves dealing with the secession of a priestess to a god which I nor any of my kin are beholden to.
I agree.
But
let's be willing to see if she can give us more information. I'm willing to bet that she is going to give us more vague answers like Bastillion is cutthroat and oh no, things happen, somebody might be there.
You two are of the north. You expect direct answers. I
don't expect direct answers from people, but I want them.
My apologies. My terminology was not necessarily accurate to the situation, but more what I mean is that I am more adept at pulling information from people without necessarily having them say exactly what they mean. It's just understanding more where their body language is, how they understand things. I don't think she's the direct type. Over the course of my interactions with her, from what I've understood of her, is that she's not necessarily confident enough to be the direct type. And maybe she won't be able to give us those answers. So demanding them from her wouldn't necessarily be the correct way to do it. However, presenting her with the option of potentially another contract with us would require her to give us at least general information about what is happening and what we might expect.
I just sigh, because I know you're right.
I'll see what she has to say.
Yeah, I just looked at Eleanor and I'm like,
I agree completely.
More direct this world would.
Believe me, that's why I like the North. That's why I came up there in the first place. It's because I heard that you were more direct with your culture, and I thought that very interesting because it's different than many of the places I've been.
I'm already missing it. It's back to something he's familiar with and not happy with.
Yeah, I mean, pretty words will only get you so far.
I don't really like embellishment with words either. That's why I don't really like the bards and their tales of heroes, because they're often embellished. I understand that your people have a very word-based culture. Your history, your mythology, it's all coming from stories being told. But from what I've seen from the north, those stories are only mildly embellished compared to some of the shenanigans that you hear about down here. I mean, have you heard the tale of Gilwyn Gallagher? I mean, I had them play it for us. I mean, that is just, it's an absurd set of circumstances that couldn't possibly have actually occurred. Just absolutely ridiculous. And that's a bard writing that. About himself, no less. It's just
to Eleanor again, I'm like, where we're from, our bards fight in battle alongside us.
Precisely.
We don't need to embellish stories.
Exactly. And that's my point. I miss the north because it's direct and honest.
Yeah, there's a...
This is also part of the north.
Yeah. No,
Right.
Yeah, but none of you consider it part of the north.
No.
I
For
just think
sure.
it's funny that Barut is making the distinction.
I also just I find it funny because I'm like, yeah, Barut actually is a pretty cultured guy after all. Like, you know, I thought he was just like a lot of the elves for a while, but he gets it.
It's right about this time that Cherubin will actually come down the stairs and her a little bit behind her. Because the whole thing is that Cherubin is basically going to make sure that Kavera has somewhere safe to stay here. And she seems more than... now that they've had time to sleep, Cherubin is just beaming, smiling. Just a little bit too much.
Bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, not... Well, maybe. She gets too excited. And she is like, are you ready? I'm very excited to show you to my church. I hope things haven't changed too much since I've been gone. I haven't been gone very long, so probably things haven't changed much.
Before we travel, I do need to actually discuss with you about the business. Of course, I hate to do this because we're in the middle of, you know, a very exciting time for you, but our responsibility as a Greyfist is to complete the contract that was set before us. Now, we did do that at this point. It was to deliver you to Bastillion. We have in fact done that, and we are so thankful that you gave us this opportunity. The city is beautiful, by the way, very interesting, and the culture here is just phenomenally interesting, and I'm very, very excited to see more of it. And I would love to see your chapel. It's something I'm very excited about. It's very interesting to me to see the other cultures, and especially another religious culture. Unfortunately, before we do that, we do have to get to the business of the contract.
Like, you see, as you describe this, her big smile just slowly faded to nothing.
Yeah.
Oh.
And she very quietly opens up her, like, purse and takes out a checkbook and straight up writes a check for to the Bank of Bastillion. With very neat handwriting with a quill for 1,200 gold pieces to Barut. However you pronounce your last name.
Bainerin.
Bainerin. She can't pronounce it either, but she can
That's
spell
okay.
it.
She can spell it. That's the important thing.
And she'll just hand it to you and kind of like tug on Kavera's sleeve a bit and be like, "Come on, we're going."
Before you go, was hoping to discuss this with you. Your church and what's happening there.
You clearly don't want to be there.
And I'm sorry, but what makes you think that?
She kind of like looks back and forth, and she kind of looks at the rest of you, and then back to Barut and just says, "I'm not an idiot."
I'm sorry. You're going to need to explain.
If you want to come with me, you can come with me.
Barut's gonna lean forward a little bit and just kind of, because he's sitting right now, and he's gonna lean forward and he's gonna put his elbow on the table and his hand on his chin, and he's going to say, "What makes you think we wouldn't want to come with you?"
I don't know. I thought that you were all my friends, but clearly you're just in this all for the coin and the contracts.
Just because we have a
I
job
thought
to
for a
do
second
doesn't
there
mean
that
that we
you
didn't
would-
enjoy your company.
Then don't try and pretend that you weren't about to make me sign another contract to escort me off to the spire just one bridge away.
We wouldn't be asking that. I'm happy to accompany you. And I'm sure that these fine folk would be as well. We just want to know more about it and more about the situation. And
I'm
everything
going
around
to
it.
my church. I am going to be in charge of it. I don't know anything else. I haven't been here for 4 years. I don't have
Tell me what
answers.
you remember. I want to know more about your church. What
If
you
you
knew
want to
about
know
it.
more about the church, come with me.
Gladly. And I will stand up and grab my stuff and throw it over my shoulder. And I will kind of put my arm on her shoulder and just say, I'm very interested in learning more about you and your people and your place. I really hope that I didn't give you the wrong impression.
Give me a persuasion check. I love the face of, oh no, I have to make a roll. That's a good roll. She seems to calm down a bit, but she leaves without saying anything. But she doesn't stop you coming with her or anything.
I'm going to go with her, but I'm going to just hang back for a second, and I'm going to tell the group, it's up to you whether you come. I am going to go, and I'm going to explore this situation, but I will also be not interacting if there is any violence. The only thing I will do is defend myself and the people directly next to me. But if there's any violence or interaction, I will be avoiding it. But it's up to you.
I just like turn to Tobias. I'm like, see, told you. Now we're involved.
And with
grab
that, we're gonna take a break. We'll be back in like 5-ish minutes. Who knows, right? It's the future.